Right, so we were bit this evening today on Carlin, a review for the 24-25 season. Firstly, Leon, how are you doing?
All right, Joe. It's been a couple of weeks since the season's finished, so I've had a little break from the football side, but it never quite stops in terms of the off-the-field stuff. But yeah, I'm all right. I'm good. Recharging the battery, so to speak. But yeah, ready to go again.
I know yourself and Dave have not really had time because I think I've been down here loads. It's like I think you've probably been down here just as much.
Yeah.
Obviously, how's it been like recruiting players over the summer? I know there's been a few big decisions made.
Yeah, there's been quite a few decisions made. First of all, it's probably a great opportunity now just to thank the lads from last year. I think bits and pieces have gone out on social media. There's been a bit of change. It had to happen. A few lads have left on their own accord. A few boys have gone back after the loans have ended, and a couple of people have just decided that they want a fresh start next year, which we thank them for the efforts over the season. But yeah, in terms of recruitment, what I said to Dave towards the end of last season, it was critical that we looked at the group, because I think it did need a reset. I think we've been on a journey from me and Chris originally coming into the club 3 years ago, where you've got a fantastic football club, but on the field it was pretty poor when we first took over. I think that's been mentioned a couple of times. We've been on a 3-year period, which is going from really poor, how do we win games again, to having a fantastic Northern League team, to having a competitive Northern Premier League East side. So I've mentioned to you on numerous occasions, Joe, I just want to win. I want to be competitive at the right end of the table, and I want to be challenging for things. So we've probably looked at the group very quickly after the season had finished and thought, what is it going to take for us to start a new cycle, which is how do we go from the point that we're at now to the league above, or wherever that may be. And you start with yourself. You look at yourself, what could me and Dave done better? Then you look at the players, where can we improve? Football doesn't stand still. So how can we improve the squad? How can we improve the sort of mentality in the dressing room? And like I say, we come to the conclusion that we arguably needed a fresh break. We've probably lost 50% of the squad and recruited 8 players to date. Hopefully we're not finished. I am still speaking to 1 or 2 other players that I think will make a massive impact on the squad. But yeah, it was season's over. We had to get to work, because it was important for me to not only bring in the right players with the right mentalities, with the right attitudes. I wanted to get it done quickly. I wanted to get players in the door. We know where we're batting. We then all go away and have a few weeks rest, recovery, plan our pre-season, and hit the ground running come the last week in June. So yeah, it's been eventful, and hopefully it will be for the next couple of weeks as well.
Obviously, we'll rewind it back to this time last year where we had a mass exodus, really, with I'm going to say 11, 12 players leaving. Yeah. Obviously, we brought in a lot of players, but it felt like it was massive turnover. Even when they came in, they've left within 4 or 5 months, or some earlier, some later. Only ones from top of my head who ended up staying around all season was Johnny and Jordan, and Sam stayed till about March time. Yeah. How was it when you were building that kind of core of squad that from the Northern League?
Like I said, football doesn't stand still. Chris decided he wanted to make some significant changes last year. He had his reasons for that. It was a bit of a risk last summer. I felt at the time it was a bit of a risk, given the fact that a lot of players were tied in, so to speak, with the current clubs. They were in the middle of 2-year contracts, and what we're probably finding now as a generation, we're all picking away at the same pot of players. There isn't massive amount of players like there was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. So all the clubs are fighting for the similar sort of players. And I felt last summer, for Chris's reasons, he decided to rip it up and start again last summer. There was an element of risk to that, because the pot last summer was a lot smaller than it has been this summer. And it was tough. I dare say we took gambles on players based upon a good season in the Northern League and as we've probably seen as the season progressed, particularly in the first 3, 4, 5 months, that a lot of these players that came in the summer went with us towards the back end of the season. They'd been given opportunities, and for one reason or another, it didn't work out. And in some senses, we went back to what we had the previous year, and result improved. So, yeah, it was one of them last summer. It was calculated. It's always a calculated risk when you're letting players go, bringing players in. It probably didn't work out last summer, if we're being perfectly honest.
So obviously we'll go on to the season. Obviously we started the season with a derby win over West Auckland, which I think a lot of people kind of saw that as a game where it could be new squad, you could get found out, you know, in the derby, but obviously went on to win 2-0 with Donny scoring and Louis. Then we came against Stocksbridge, who experienced in this league and obviously have since gone on to get promoted, being 2-0 up with 26 minutes left to play, losing 3-2. How do you kind of look at that for, like, opening first few games?
Obviously you find some confidence within the group of what you've seen during pre-season. So as much as we had the changes we had and the players that came to the football club, we still thought we'd have a strong season. We got West in it was the FA Cup, so obviously that brings its own challenges, which is a local derby, plenty through the gate. We went on to win the game. I thought the game was quite comfortable on the day, and then the first game of the season, Stocksbridge, that was a red flag straight away. I thought the first hour we were really, really good. We stuck to our principles and we played football, which was probably something similar we did in the previous season. We're in a comfortable position, but the red flag was at no point is the game over at this level of football, and it's something I've said consistently, and that first game of the season was a massive indication of it. The game's not over till it's over. You've got big, powerful sides from top to bottom, and one thing they've all got in common is they don't give up. And I think we found out that pretty early with the Stocksbridge game, and I don't think it was the only time that happened, was it?
Obviously then we had Ashton 3 times in about 7 days or something like that. I know. First game we won Matty Time and got a double just after half time. Then we played them in the FA Cup, which was live on BBC, which I can imagine was a big occasion for yourself, Chris, and the whole club itself. Obviously we drew that game, went lost in the replay. Over them 3 games, especially against Ashton, being like, get an idea of, because they spent this season in the league before, getting an understanding of what you need at this level.
Well, like you've touched on it there, they'd been in the league a season longer than us, and they'd learned what the league's about. And as much as I touched on there about what Stocksbridge were, you've got to be at it from the first minute to the last. The games are won and lost in the main by small margins, and you looked at, I think it was the one that we won, I think Matty Time scored an absolute screamer, but there was nothing in the game. There was nothing in the game that we lost, and there was nothing in the game that we drew. But the league's massively about being competitive, being disciplined, organised, and them key moments that when they arrive you've got to take them, and it's usually who's better in both boxes, and that was massively pivotal over that small period of time from the Stocksbridge to the 3-game fixtures with Ashton, that we weren't going to get everything our own way. We had to be at it for 90 minutes, and the games were going to be won and lost by fine margins, and it's something that quickly dawned on us that we weren't going to have it our own way like we did the previous season.
Obviously we had a quite frustrating spell. Obviously we played Carlton away and lost 5-1. A couple of days later we played Aycliffe on Bank Holiday Monday, drew 2-2, 1-1, can't remember. And then defeats to Brighouse, Grimsby Borough, and then as well Nantwich in the FA Vars. But then Munch came back, John obviously came back from Spenny. In that group, and after that spell, and obviously with some players returning, how did you kind of look into that?
Well, the Carlton one away, that was a baptism of fire. That was the first game where you thought, geez, it took us forever to get there. When we got there, it was a really, really poor performance on the day against a side that have been in and around them playoffs all season, so it's testament to them that they are a good side. But on the day I just thought they were just a steady side, but they rolled us over. They scored 1 and we pretty much collapsed, and that was probably the first indicator of actually this new group that we've put together. The cracks appeared pretty quickly, which then, like you've touched on there, opportunities to bring players back that were tried and tested previously. They're presenting themselves, and we grabbed hold of them. And yeah, we brought John back, we brought Munchie back. I don't know how much longer it was before Dane was back. And obviously results started to change ever so slightly in that period, but yeah, it was a tough spell.
Obviously, we also brought in Cyril over that period as well, which is another one who was kind of trying to test in his league. I think he spent a few months at Concert the season before, and it performed well at Ashton in the early parts of the season. But he's come in, and then I think his individual performances were okay, but then we've gone on as a team, we kind of lost 4-0 to Wembley, which John got sent off in within about 10 minutes, I want to say, give or take. And then obviously the Sherwood draw and the Bridlington game, which...
Yeah, well, the Emily game, Emily were flying at the time, weren't they? I think we conceded after about 90 seconds, if that, in the game, which puts you on the back foot. Then we've had the red card through John, and then you're always up against it. We probably were the better side with 10 men for the first half, but as the game went on, they got stronger, we got weaker. The Sherwood away, it was a tough one to take. We were competitive throughout, conceded late on, drew the game. And then Bridlington was a replica of what happened down here against Oxford, wasn't it? Was it 3-0 up at this point? Less time on the clock. Yeah, it was a difficult spell. Like I say, with a new group, it sometimes does take time, Joe, but every time we thought we took a step forward, it came crashing back down to earth, and we had to start again.
Obviously, I know we have conceded a few late winners in our time in this league, but obviously we got one at North Ferriby with Rio, I think. Last touch of the game. Obviously, how good is that moment?
Yeah, they're the good moments, aren't they? I've been asked on many occasions what I felt the season was, and I dare say you'll probably ask me at the end of this, but we finished mid-table because we've had highs and we've had lows, and when you finish mid-table, they usually even themselves out. That was one. Emily, like I say, we were drenched against a good side there. I think they were, not Emily, sorry, it was North Ferriby, sorry. I think they were in and around the playoffs at the time, if not right at the top. And we went there, we put a performance in that we were capable of. And in that probably moment, a draw would have been a fantastic result on the road. But then when Rio scored and you had players mixing with fans behind the goal, celebrations in the bar, and you would have thought we'd won the FA Cup that day, but it did feel significant and probably a little bit of a reward on the back of a bad run, which the lads had stuck in and got some out of it. So they were the good ones, and there was a couple of good ones, but yeah, that was a particular one.
Obviously, then I know Dane came back on loan, as you were cited earlier on. Then we went to beat Ossip 3-0 here. I think we were 2-0 up in about 5 minutes or something like that. Obviously, we drew to Garforth away on Tuesday night with a bit of a depleted squad. And then away to Bradford Park Avenue, which I think we went down there like, in non-league, Bradford Park Avenue quite a big club. When we went down there, I think we probably realised how they're one of the bigger clubs in the league. And obviously, I think we had Ryan Goff at our time, we had Adam come on in the second half. How do you think that we actually kind of dealt with that run after the North Ferriby game?
I think it gave us that little bit of confidence. Like I say, we had some new but old faces. It galvanised us ever so slightly, gives us a little bit of confidence, a little bit of a spring in our step, and the results fell in on the back of that. The performances, the levels, and the way we had to conduct ourselves to get a result on a Saturday afternoon, by bringing better players through the door, results improved. And it felt like we were genuinely, at that time, it felt like we had a bad start. We were, you'll know better than I did, we were down there. And that was the first sign that actually we can be competitive. We do need to have our ducks in order. We've acknowledged now that you can't play for 60 minutes and you've got to be better in both boxes, and them performances and them results that we started to pick up were encouraging at the time. And it gave us a platform to kick on, really, but yeah.
Obviously then the 0-0 draw at Bertie Town, the Challenge Cup, going out on penalties, which entirely Alfie Gordon, who we've just signed, has saved 2 of them and knocked us out. And then I think
Alfie.
I think it was less than 24 hours afterwards as the message come out that Chris was leaving. How did you kind of assess that? Did you have any idea beforehand or not?
Not in that moment. I think Chris came in, and let's applaud what he's done. He's turned a team that was pretty poor, and I'm trying to not be disrespectful there, it was pretty poor when Chris arrived, between myself, Chris, Dally, and everyone, yourself included. Collectively, we've grown the club to the position on the field which we are now. Everyone's played the part, but as a manager, Chris has maybe done 20, if not longer, years in football. At some point that does grab hold of you, and I think that 3-year spell that Chris has done at the football club can be nothing but applauded what he did. And Chris, for his own reasons, felt that was the right time. Did I expect it to happen then? No. I thought it'd probably be at the end of the season, or not a million miles away after the season had finished. So it was a shock at the time, in a sense that I didn't expect it in that moment. But it wasn't a shock in a sense that I knew it was coming at some point. So yeah, it was pretty quick after the Berkeley game, the disappointment of the game, going out on penalties in a cup competition which we should be really competitive with and trying to win. Yeah, these things happen, it's football.
Obviously then you took the job. I think we had the meeting on the Thursday, was it?
Yeah.
Where I'm guessing you had a phone call from Steve and the directors to kind of get that sorted on the Wednesday. Then obviously we came in on Thursday. You were appointed, you had a meeting with all the players on the day, and we had an interview at the time. Obviously you brought Dave Onions in with you, David Ryder, and obviously you kept Jack on as well, who did join the staff in the summer. Yeah. Obviously, was David Onions a person who, like, if you were ever going to management, if it was at the club or anywhere else, was David always a person you wanted to bring with you?
Yeah, so Dave's someone I've known from the football circuit, playing with him, against him, just being local to me for maybe 15 years, maybe even longer. I've played with him a couple of times. He's someone who I can relate to in terms of a person. So Dave was always someone who was high up on someone I wanted to be with me, someone who I trust, and that's a massive thing. Dave brings a wealth of football experience, wealth of management in a sense, not just football but in life. Very experienced person, switched on, clever, intelligent, knows the game. But that side, I trust him. He's got good morals, good values, and when you step into this role at a club like this, at any club for that matter, you need someone by your side that's going to back you, that's going to pick you up when you're down, and who's got your back. I think the phrase is got your back, and I could never question that in Dave or Dave Ryder or Jack, so it was pretty easy. They were the people I wanted with me. But the answer to your question, Dave Onions is first choice, first person I thought, he's the man I want stood next to me, and I was obviously over the moon when he accepted the challenge, because David stepped away from football. He has I've touched on it a couple of times, Dave's a massive family person. He's got his wife that he thinks the world of, his 2 daughters, that they're his life, Dave, and he's been involved in football for as long as I have, and he felt he was at that period where football wasn't that important, it was all about his family. So for Dave to sacrifice that time away from his family for me and for this football club, fantastic. And like I say, he accepted the position straight away. Obviously then baptism of fire, Cleethorpes away, one of the longest journeys. Horrible day. But top of the league as well, but went away with a depleted squad. Obviously we had Jack Norton in, drafted Jack Norton in with Ryan missing. Louis was injured on the day. There was a couple. Rio had been out a while at that point. I want to win every game, regardless who it is, who we're playing. I want to win. But there is certain games where you think, and at that point, given what had gone on during the week, the injuries we had on the Saturday, if we'd have lost that game, I don't think there'd have been any spilt milk over it. It'd have been, let's just write it off and now season start. After that, but if I remember rightly, the message on the day was, if that's the mentality that it's not going to define our season. I think Cleethorpes hadn't been beat at home all season. They hadn't been beaten 10 all up in total at the time. We could have wrote that game off and said, regardless of the result, we start next week. But if you go there with that mentality, you've got nothing to lose. I think on the day the message was, let's be organised, let's dig in, let's acknowledge that they're going to have spells, and let's all just stick together. And when an opportunity comes, let's just make sure we take it, and who knows what it'll look like at 5 o'clock. And I think it was JJ header, and second half there was a couple of spells where we had to dig in. But I think if anyone was going to score a second, I think in fairness Jack Norton's made a fantastic save, but then we've had an opportunity, the ball's been squared off Cyril to Gary, and you thought 2-0, and it wasn't. It didn't need to be. We won 1-0. And going back to the North Ferriby conversation we've just had, that was another one. It was first game, unexpected 3 points. It wasn't a performance I didn't think we were capable of, because we were capable of it. But so soon after being appointed, it was good. It was good in the bar afterwards. The fans were happy. It was lively on the bus on the way home. And that's what this level has to be about, having that sort of togetherness between fans, players, away days. You're not going to win them all, but enjoy them for what they are. But with a good group, you'll enjoy more than you won't.
Obviously, we had beat Liverpool at home, I think, the following game. Mm-hmm. And it kind of came this stop-start period where games would be on, games would be off. I think Belpo was called off at 8 o'clock in the morning, the day we were going to travel down. Obviously, Stocksbridge, we got down there at 2 o'clock, it was called off. Mm-hmm. But obviously, we've got wins against Heaton Stand 4-0. Then obviously, we've lost to Aycliffe and Grimsby, which I think Grimsby was probably. I think Grimsby finished near us.
Yeah, I think, like you touched on it there, Joe, we found a little bit of more confidence after the Cleethorpes. We won a couple of games on the back of that, and you thought, we can build on this, but then it was stop, start, and to be fair, it was the same for everyone. We had a pretty harsh winter, but that sort of stemmed our momentum. The Aycliffe game, won't forget that. Let ourselves down. The Grimsby one, I think on the day, again we were down to the bones. I don't recall off the top of my head who was missing defensively, but I do remember we had Rio, JJ and John all missing in the middle of the park. We had a couple of bodies struggling with injuries, and we just patched the team up on the afternoon. And I actually thought Grimsby were probably one of the better sides we played on that afternoon. They popped the ball about really nicely, and it was a difficult one, but it fell in line with going from winning, stop, and then we lost that little bit of momentum that we'd gained, and it was disappointing at the time. But like I've touched on previously, and you've just touched on there, that was what the season was. It was win, lose, draw a couple. It was inconsistent, and that's why you end up finishing mid-table.
Obviously, we mentioned the period as well. I think Corby actually came in around that period of time. Obviously, young lad, moved up to the northeast on his own with his girlfriend. Obviously, I know you brought him going. I think a lot of people have kind of grown because you see he will be a very good footballer.
Yeah.
Obviously, how did you feel when a young lad who's not from the northeast is coming to the club and said, "Oh, can I play for us?"
Well, when you talk about young lads and this modern generation of player, which, I won't say a massive amount about this modern generation of player, but he's an exception to it, Kobe. I remember taking the call from Kobe, expressing his desire to have an opportunity. And I sounded him out and said, once you move into the area, he was living Sheffield way, I think. When you move into the area, come down, have a few sessions, we'll go from there. He actually asked if he could come now. I said, and I was taken back by the fact that he was prepared to travel on a Tuesday night to Bishop Auckland from Sheffield just for an hour and a half training session. I thought, wow, what an attitude. And that was the first sign of what Kobe is for a young lad. His commitment, his attitude, away from his football ability, which he's got in an abundance for such a young lad, unbelievable. It's no secret that Kobe hasn't had loads of minutes this year, given the situation we were in the league. We've had to choose our moments to give Kobe time. Never whinged once. Never complained, never moaned, never little skitty remarks. He's always one of the first here. He's always one of the last to leave. The way he speaks and the way he conducts himself is unbelievable for a young lad who's, like I say, he's not familiar with the area, familiar with the lads. How he's conducted himself, Kobe, unbelievable. So having Kobe with us last season, asking him to be patient for his moments, and then this summer to sit down with Kobe, put him on a contract, shows our loyalty to him and someone we want to have with us for not just this year but several years going forward. Kobe's top draw. top draw. Honestly, if my sons turn out like him, I'll be over the moon.
Obviously, we had January, which was another one where I think we had loads of games. A couple of midweek away ones where we were like, oh, obviously I know lost 4-2 to Bridlington. Another game we were leading in, I want to say, at one point.
We won it up at half time.
Yeah.
That was a tough one, that, Joe. I was hoping you wouldn't mention that, but yeah. It was, the Bridlington one was tough. It was tough for me mentally, to be honest with you. That was one where I needed Mr. Onions. Awful night, awful pitch, awful performance, particularly in the second half. But like you touched on there, we were in a winning commanding position at half time, and yeah, it wasn't great. Took a bit of soul searching on the way home, to say the least, Joe.
Obviously, we played, I think, Emily the week after, who I think we drew 1-1 with them.
Yeah.
And Gary scored honestly, it was a deflection off the keeper, something like that. Obviously, we lost 4-2 to North Ferriby here, but I think they were still in around the playoff picture at the time. And I think they were another one of the sides when they've come here and gone, oh, it's a nice pitch, we'll play and we'll do well. Which he obviously went to beat us. And had that 4-3 win over Dunstan, as well as the 1-0 win over Stocksbridge on a Wednesday night, freezing cold. Gary Martin scored a worldie. How do you kind of run over that January period?
Them fixtures you've just told us there, look at where the sides have finished. Dunstan, right up there. Stocksbridge got promoted. Emily, finished in the playoffs, correct me if I'm wrong. North Ferriby, you look at the performances. We went from Bridlington, arguably the worst second half performance I've seen in a football game, to Emily on the Saturday, made a couple of changes, and that was one of our better performances of the season. It fell together. We deserved to win. Their goalkeeper made 2 saves, one particularly off John Howard, where you'll never see that in your lifetime again. Fair play to the goalkeeper, whoever he is. We had that. You had the Dunstan win away, top side, big, powerful unit, and we deserved to win. Even the North Ferriby one down here, first half we were winning. Played some of the best football we've played all season, and for one reason or another, I think we went down to 10 men in that as well, didn't we? Potentially.
I think so, maybe.
Yeah, I think we did. And we lost that one. But all them teams, common denominator is they're good sides. They were all up there, all challenging for the playoffs. That caused me frustration because I believed in the group. Them results back up my claim. But then on the back of them, did we get beat at home by Sherwood? Yeah. One of the weaker teams in the league. That created the frustration, which was this season for me. We were more than capable of beating anyone in the division. More than capable. The results suggest so. The stats back it up. But the stats also back up the fact that we get beat by all the teams at the lower end, and that was the frustration probably for me, for the club, for the fans, and that's probably what we're trying to address this summer.
We obviously then went a little run of, I think, played Ashington, Garforth, Ashington, Ossett away, which looking back we shouldn't have drawn that game. It was an interesting pitch.
Another red card.
Yeah, and then obviously drew Bradford Park Avenue and lost to Sheffield.
Yeah.
I don't really want to go too much into Sheffield because it was an interesting day. But obviously the fixtures before that was kind of sums up our season of win, lose, draw, and then obviously lost again.
Yep.
How do you kind of go over that like little run there?
With difficulty, with frustration, head scratching. It's the same players. It's the same players that went to Dunstan and won. Same tactics, same phase of play, creating the same opportunities, but sadly conceding the same goals. And I think when you look at the stats, defensively we haven't actually been that bad since we changed, bringing personnel back to the club. I think we've kept about 12 clean sheets this year, which isn't too bad. But ultimately, them fixtures that you're touching on there, that epitomises the season. And win one, lose one, draw one. And we just kept on recycling that from that point to the end of the season. It was frustrating because it was the wins against sides above us, it was the draws, the sides in and around us, and it was the losses, the sides where you look and there's no givens, but you look and think, get your ducks in order, you win today. That was massively frustrating for me. And it's the mental part of the game. I said to you, any fans that speak to me in this room, Steve, anyone I speak to on the phone, 50% of the makeup of a footballer is what's going on between their ears. And we, far too many times, last year we played the teams at the top of the table that, as a footballer, you turn up with that edge about your game. You know the pitfalls of you not being at it. and you don't allow them pitfalls to happen, because you know the outcome at the end of it. But you have to have that same mentality when you play the weaker teams, and too many times last year we got rolled over by teams we should be beaten, and that was massively frustrating, because there were some good players in that dressing room, proved on so many occasions, but mentally at times we were so weak, or we wouldn't be losing them games that we did.
Actually, I'll touch back on the Dunstan game, which to me, when I look back at it, is probably the epitomisation of our entire season, where scored some really good goals, played some really good football, but conceded some really bad goals as well. And I think might have been Dane last game before he went to Australia, cleared one off the line after he went 4-2 up with like 20 seconds, like 2 minutes left to play or something like that. And obviously they've got a consolation goal. I think they had a corner which I don't know if Jack saved or Dane cleared. But it kind of just feel like that Dunstan game and probably the Brilliant game at home summed up our season.
Yeah, at times it was kamikaze. It was when it worked, it was free flowing, fantastic, easy on the eye football, which everyone loves to see. But it goes wrong, it's the exact same on the other end of the pitch. And yeah, we had spells where I think we drew a couple of games where we shored things up, but ultimately that was testimony of the season. We were flying one end, but then we were wide open at the other, and that's probably where we're at now in this moment. How can we be more consistent, and how do we stop that element of flying up one end and conceding at the other? We've got to be a bit more pragmatic about what we do and how we manage games in key moments, and I think that's probably a massive part of where we were undermined last year. We didn't manage key moments well enough, but when it worked, it looked fantastic. Everyone was entertained, everyone loved this free-flowing football, but like you said there was too many times where Dunstan's a great one, 4-3, felt great at the end when the whistle went. But at times in the game we could have just shut up shop and won 2-0, arguably, but that's not what we did. And like we touched on earlier, then Cleethorpes away and the North Ferriby away and the Dunstan away, they're the moments in the season where you go, wow, we enjoyed that. But we need to acknowledge going into next year that we have to be better than just conceding goals for fun at times.
Obviously, I mentioned Greg Halford when he came on loan. I know we touched on it in a post-game interview. How did Greg actually come around to coming in? Because obviously he played 200-300 games in the Championship.
Yeah,
handful of the Premier League.
Greg, good bloke by the way, really top fella. I think I got a call from, I think it was Nathan Haslam at the time, and he mentioned Greg, and I thought, are we talking about the same Greg Halford here? So I looked and it was Greg, and I told this to Greg at the time. I looked and Greg's my age, 40, I know how I feel. However, I haven't had the stellar career that Greg had. I had the conversation with Greg and I raised my concerns. I thought, you're 40? Like, and he said, just let me come down, let me show you what I'm about. So yeah, he came down, no hairs and graces, great attitude, great in a sense that he was always, his calmness was something I've never seen before. When we'd have our meetings in the dressing room about the good, bad and the ugly, he always put like a calming influence on it, and his experience was unbelievable. But yeah, the answer to your question is, I took that call, I had a chat with Greg, and I won't lie, when I picked up the phone to ring Greg, my headspace was, you're 40-year-old, it's Father Time doesn't stand still for nobody. But when I put the phone down, I thought, that was refreshing. Let's see what it's about. And some of his stories on the coaches was fantastic, and just to be able to tap away his experience was brilliant for the short spell he was with us.
Obviously we had probably a quite difficult run of games after Sheffield, where Belper away, one of the longest journeys, missed a penalty on the day, drew 0-0, clean sheet away to a club who I think finished 6th, something around there. Obviously good performance probably in the day defensively, frustrating attacking wise, which may have been the story of the season. Then we lost 2-1 to Cleethorpes here, I think. Honestly, it was another quite late goal, if I remember right.
Potentially, yeah.
and then obviously beat Liversedge away, where that game possibly should have been called off at about 70 minutes.
Yeah, it was wet, wasn't it?
Yeah. And obviously drew about 0-0 again here, and then going into losing 2-0 at Heaton Stand on a Friday night. It felt like it was another one of the games where you're going like, we're competing against top teams, and Heaton Stand, who at the time I want to say were 20th, in and around there.
Yeah.
Going there on a Friday night and losing 2-0. How do you, that again feels like it just sums up our season.
Yeah, but it sums up probably the group as well. We are a collective. Management and players are all in it together, and we'll applaud them when they do well, but there's times where you have to look and go, we couldn't have done that much more there. Like you touched on there, Belper, who went down there, I've had opportunities to win the game. They were right up there at the time, drew 0-0. We didn't go for a point, but it was a good point. Cleethorpes, again, you've seen what they've done in the league. They've romped the league in the end. They beat us at home, but it wasn't a game where you thought, there's a gulf between us. But played Belper again, at home, 0-0. We should have won that game as well. Liversedge survived the monsoon, won there. Probably quite competitive game. It wasn't one side by any stretch of the imagination, but we won that game. And the Heaton Stand one, and I mean this with the utmost respect to Heaton Stand, and you know what you get when you go there. It doesn't look like that out there. They have a way of playing, they're competitive, they make good decisions, and they're in your face. If you turn up without them key traits, you'll get rolled over by Heaton Stand. But me, down to the players, we knew what we were going to. We knew it the season before when we lost there, and I think every time we play them up there, we lose. Bogey team, call it whatever you want. But you have to go there with the basic principles that they have, match them, and hope that your players are better than theirs. But you can't just turn up with the mentality of we've got better players than you, because you will get humbled. And on that night, we got humbled. We were second best all over the pitch. And the truth be told, I don't think we barely laid a glove on their goalkeeper. Correct me if I'm wrong, it was 2-0.
Yeah, it was.
Probably should have been more. And that's me being brutally honest. My favourite one-liner, it should have been more. We got dominated all over the pitch, every single player. And that's what happens when you go to Heaton Stand. If you're not at it, if you're not respectful to the club and the players that you're up against, and you're not prepared to fight fire with fire in the moment, and then hopefully you'll get a chance to play, you get rolled over and you get humbled, as they say. And we got humbled on the night.
Yeah. Obviously, you brought Wayne back in as well, in between that period as well. I'm guessing Wayne might have been the target for, obviously, for the summer, but I guess he just became available and you kind of acted before anyone else did.
Yeah, well, Wayne, I think Wayne's grew up a lot since the last time he was at the club. You'd probably describe him previously as a lovable rogue, street footballer. That's what he used to be. He's not that anymore. He's matured. He's fit as a lop. And the reason I brought Wayne back, I seen it when we played against Aycliffe. He's got the level of respect you need from players. He will do whatever he's asked to do on that football pitch. He works his socks off, he's fit, he's strong, he's got that nasty side to him as well. But he's got that level of respect that he will do his task to a T on a day. And when Wayne, it become sort of public knowledge that Wayne would be potentially available and would jump at the opportunity to come back here, I jumped at the opportunity to bring Wayne back. Wayne's everything that I want at this football club. Genuine lad who wants to work hard, he's proud to play for the football club, and he'll do whatever's necessary for a result on Saturday afternoon. So bringing Wayne back in was a no-brainer for me.
Obviously, when Wayne did come back, we had about a handful of games left, and obviously he was involved in two of them, ones that I mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
Them going to close season with a away trip to Pontefract, which was a weird game. I think there was controversy about one of their lads getting sent off, and obviously I don't really want to go into it because it's the FA, you know. Obviously we drew with them. I think Jake Hackett's second start of the season, I think he started Ashton in the first week, then had been involved in and around the bench a couple of times. Obviously his first start back, how was it? A lot of kind of trusting to make sure Jake's 100% ready to come back in? Yeah,
I think Jake, anyone who's had Jake, anyone who's seen Jake, Jake's top draw. But what we had last year with Jake was an injury out of there in the summer, picked up, I think we were away at Whitby pre-season. He came back and the same thing happened again. We didn't have Jake, we definitely didn't have the proper Jake Hackett all season. It took him a long time to get over that injury. If you can get the real Jake Hackett, a fit, strong Jake Hackett, you've got a top player. Getting him back, particularly for that Pontefract game, I think you probably alluded to the fact that his delivery for the goal was unbelievable, which is just standard for Jake Hackett. It was good to get Jake back because, like I say, it was like a free player, someone who's been with us all season but not actually got on the pitch. But we had reached that point in the season where 5 minutes or 10 minutes here and there, that wasn't really available. It was a case of sink or swim, and Jake embraced that. He got on with it. He had ice packs after games on his knees, and I'm hoping with the right sort of summer, he's probably rested. I've just seen him tonight, as it happens. He's probably rested. Jake's like a model pro, so Jake will come back in good condition. We'll look after him, and hopefully next season we see what we all know's there. We just sadly didn't see it last year because of the niggles that he had.
Obviously, we then went a run of a 3-0 win over Brighouse with a Glenn Hargrave hat-trick, Concert 0-0, and then a 2-1 defeat of Carlton with the last 3 games of the season. Again, it kind of was win, draw, loss. Kind of how the season started.
It's the same pattern, isn't it? I mean, I'll touch on that. That was our only hat-trick, I think, from a player this season, and it's public knowledge now that Glenn's moved on. What a guy. What a guy. It's like, he's loved in the dressing room by every single player, one of the nicest people in football. And if there was one player that you wanted to score an hat-trick last year, it was Glenn Hargrave. I particularly remember he was brilliant on the day. He was brilliant throughout, and Glenn probably doesn't get the props he deserves. Glenn came into an environment where he had to go and play at the top of the pitch and just take a battering. And for a pretty boy, let's not kid ourselves here, it's probably not what he wants to do, but he sacrificed himself for the team. And I just want to actually say in the moment, thanks to Glenn, because he's a top lad now. He's conducted himself as being fantastic. We then went to Concert. It wasn't a spectacle. It did give us an opportunity to play Kobe, which, if you're going to take anything away from that game, Kobe had a fantastic game. His first start. It was a point, but it wasn't great of a performance from both sides. And then Carlton, last game of the season. I think we've let 2 soft goals in the first half. We arguably should have been 4-5-2 up. Going back to the kamikaze football that we've played, it was back to that. We should have been 4-5-2 up at half time. And by the end of the game, could have been 8-9, truth be told. And I'm not saying that disrespectfully. Carlton have been a fantastic side this season. I wish them all the best in. I think they're moving to another division next year. Wish them all the best. I'll be glad not to travel down there for an away game. But them guys have had a fantastic season. But on that day was us all over. We've conceded 2 sloppy goals, dominated large spells, and haven't put the ball in the net. And when that sort of doesn't happen, you tend to lose games. But that was a game, Carlton, where I can't accept defeat. Doesn't sit well with me, even though you can't win every game. But that was a game where you came away and thought there's not much more we could have done other than put the ball in the net, and it hasn't gone that way on that afternoon. But like you say, there's 3 fixtures, classic Bishop Auckland, 24-25, win, lose, draw. And when you do that consistently through the season, you finish mid-table.
Obviously, you've not been charged for the full season. How did you actually find managing for, I'm going to probably say, the majority of the season, because it felt like it that you'd been in since mid-October?
Yeah, I think prior to me taking over, you have the manager, like, he takes the hit, so to speak. It's him with the pressure as the assistant. You're just there to support. I felt as the assistant, I was probably doing more than that. I was in and around recruitment and all stuff like that. But then when you're actually in the hot seat, you probably realise that, you are carrying the burden, which is win, lose or draw, the expectations of fans, the chairman, and everyone else. How do I think it went? I think I've enjoyed it. There's been a lot of frustrations. The frustrations has been what I touched on earlier. It's difficult to work out how you can go and beat Dunstan away and then lose at home to Sherwood 3 days later. Now, I haven't got a magic ball to work out why that is. I've touched on earlier on about the 3 components of a footballer: your physical, your talent, but what's going on between your ears is massive, and that can only be the reason for some of the results this year. But as a management team, because we all play our part, yourself included, Joe, I think we've done all right. Like I say, the performances have picked up, the points have picked up. Our aim this season, whether it was naive or not, last summer was to be challenging in around the playoffs. At one point we were joint bottom, so to finish in the top half, we'll take that. But that gives us our platform going into next year. That's our start point. We need to kick on.
Obviously now I know we touched on the start of next season at the start. Obviously you've signed on 9 players now?
8
players.
Yeah.
Obviously you've kind of got your core of your squad. I think we've got about 16, 17 signed on now. Obviously there's been some big name signings such as Michael Fowler, Mikey Roberts, Paddy, Paul Van, Jermaine Metz and Alfie, who we did mention earlier on.
The chairman sat there, you might want to mention Dean Thexton.
Oh, and Dean as well. Obviously we mentioned Dean, local lad. How's it to kind of get your squad done, almost done as early as we have been? Is it kind of now planned of what you expect from them and going into pre-season? Yeah,
so we have our ethos of what we want to do next year in terms of how we're going to play, how we're going to set up, home and away, because you have to manage games individually. It was massively important for us to identify where we need to improve and get them in the door quickly. If we get them in the door quickly, bear in mind I mentioned the pot is only small and everyone's fighting for the same players. I won't name other clubs, but I can assure you we weren't the only club that wanted Michael Fowler and Dean Thexton. We weren't the only club that wanted Paul Van Zanderveld and Paddy Armand and so on and so forth. So it was important for us to push the button early, show our hand, get these players in. It then gives us a period of time whilst other clubs are ferreting about trying to sign players for us to say, right, when we come back on the 28th of June, what does it look like? How do we get from that point to the start of the season? What content do we need to get into the players? What fitness do the players need to be in? And that's the period that we're going through now. Like I said earlier on, if there's an opportunity, which I hope there is, to bring in another 1, maybe 2, a bit more experience, we'll look to do that. But as it stands with 17 players on the books, all good players, all good lads, all prepared to pull in the same direction, we're happy with what we've done and how we've done it. We now just need to put a little bit of context into what we want to do, how they're fitting, and just work away for the next, whatever's pre-season is, 6-7 weeks.
I mean, obviously also Robbie Spence in there as well.
Robbie Spence, poor Robbie hasn't had a mention there. Sorry, Robbie.
But also I've noticed this kind of group that you've brought in, there's been, I think, majority of the past 3 seasons we've had a Teesside based group. Whereas it seems this year everyone's from kind of everywhere in the North East. Obviously a couple of local lads, Wayne and Dean, Corby, Jake. Obviously you've got Newcastle 3. I think I don't know if anyone else is based up that way.
There's a few of them from up that way. Like you said, we've spread out. What this club gives you, with everything that what comes with this club and the location, is access to all corners of the North East of England. Predominantly for I'll call it the first 3 years of the project, it has been predominantly Teesside based. It's what we know, what's local to myself and Chris. We felt now that cycle, the next cycle, we probably need to explore other areas, get a different sort of calibre of player, different mentality from different environments, and yeah, that's what we've chose to do. Like I say, I don't actually think a location so much when I speak to players, but it is like you've touched on there, these lads spread out. But yeah, like I say, this is a central hub for a top football club where lads will be looked after and hopefully will do well. Have you got a final message for supporters going into the next season? Yeah, just stick with us. You've been great this year. Massively thankful for your support since I've took over. It often goes wrong, truth be told, when the assistant takes over from the manager. I don't think this has, and I'm as committed as anyone to making sure it doesn't. We're ambitious, but we have to be realistic as well. Just get behind the lads. Get behind. That's all I ask. Don't bother about me. Get behind the lads. Support the lads. Win, lose or draw. We're all in this together, from management to players to people above me in the club. But ultimately, the fans are massively important to what we do now and in the future. And if we can create an environment which is, we're all in it together. Every single person, whether you walk through the gate or you walk through the main entrance, whether you put a kit on or whether you put a scarf on, we're all in it together. And I can assure you, when the lads are getting supported, it goes a long way. And like I say, we're in it together. We want to win and be successful together, and that's fans, players, management alike. And thank you for this year, and hopefully next year's a little bit better.
Cheers, Ian. Thank you very much.
Thank you.